These are the top 5 Kyrie Irving moves. Let's get into it. Okay, first one's almost like a fake sham god, sort of, a little bit different. But real quick, I want to let you know at the end, I actually threw in a 6 move, and in my opinion, it's probably the craziest and best one. But this first move, whichever hand's dribbling, he did it with the right hand. He took like a cross body step as he was dribbling the basketball and leaned into it. Now, it wasn't a big cross body step, so you want to think about whichever hand's dribbling, opposite foot stepping forward towards the defense like you're trying to get past them a little bit, but not a long step, just sort of a, you know, about shoulder width apart, but turned here and leaning into that a little bit. And that's gonna be with the opposite foot of the hand with the basketball in the direction of the side of the hand that has the basketball. And he had the ball hit right about the same time as the foot. And that kind of sold a fake like he was gonna drive here, but it almost seemed to me like he was trying to set up like a fake sham god sort of a thing. I don't know what exactly the fake was trying to do, but he just went like that. And most defenders are gonna follow the hips and the chest when they come this way, right? Well, he used that again as a shorter step to just kind of stun them and think he might go. Defense didn't move too much. From there, he hopped his feet back while the ball was floating in air, kind of unorthodox and a little bit different, but since his body was here, it's pretty protected. And he hopped and squared his feet back up and had this foot back a little bit. So this foot that jab forward, we're gonna come back kind of squared, but that same foot's gonna be slightly back. And then from there, he got the ball and just went. And what it amounted to do was just kind of freezing the defender. And I think turning his shoulders like this maybe made the defense think he was thinking about retreating this way because he kind of turned his back a little bit into it too. But you could also add what I just tend to like to do from this end of the mix by looking this way to make the defense think you might come back this way and then explode this way. Now, I can't talk about Kyrie Irving and not talk about the double behind the back. Now, as you can tell, you're gonna need some good ball control and footwork to get a lot of these moves down. If you want a way to improve both those, I got a free workout for you that's pinned in the comments. Now, on most highlights, you'll typically see Kyrie started off with the right hand and work his way back to the right side. But my recommendation is to work on both so you got options for every game situation. So typically, he's gonna get into this approaching a defender and taking a 1-2 speed stop. So we wanna think about the feet going 1-2. Typically, it's gonna be opposite foot of the basketball, and then the ball side foot stopping. But you also, again, might want to work on different options for different game situations. So no matter what foot happens to be on the ground, you can get into this quick. So you can work on ball side foot, then the opposite foot. From there, you're gonna go into a flat back behind the back. Couple keys you want to pay attention to with this is that number one is just side to side, right? Flat back behind the back. So basically think about it being parallel to your body, just like in a crossover, just behind the back. And you also want to think about having the second hand down here, low weighting. What that'll do is give you options to play around with this first behind the back by letting the ball come up a little higher and change the timing, or you can keep it down low and push it right back behind the back. Usually that's the way Kyrie will do it, is I'll push it right back behind the back. From that first flat back behind the back, he's gonna get into a cross step shuffle. So that's really important. And he's gonna do that with a wrap behind the back. That's another important thing to know. So on the first behind the back, you can almost think about having your hand hit the same side butt or your wrist hit the same side butt to get the ball even lower. That's usually where Kyrie does it, where the wrist or forearm is hitting the same side butt, so left hand, left butt cheek, or right arm, right butt cheek. But on the second one, you wanna think about getting that hand on the opposite side. So it would be right side butt, back to the right side butt. And if you do that, that's gonna push the ball more forward. What he adds in with that is that cross step shuffle, just like that. So you don't wanna think about it as being like your defensive shuffle. In fact, even on defense, it is good to cross your feet. A lot of coaches say you shouldn't do this. You'll never trip over your own feet. Think about if you're gonna cross in front or behind, make sure when that foot is in the air that the other foot pops into the air before that foot lands and you'll be good to go. Reason we want that cross step shuffle is because I can cover a lot more ground. Notice how much ground I covered there versus there. And what that allows him to do is fake the defender out there and then get downhill and cover a lot more ground and put them in his dust. Two other things I recommend you do is work on going with a cross body step too, slightly different footwork. So not a cross step shuffle where my chest stays this way and I just cross my feet and then come back to kind of squared here. But instead you're gonna think about taking a big cross body step with this foot, the same side foot as the hand that's doing that wrap behind the back dribble. So it's more of a running motion. I prefer that one in a lot of situations. It just depends because now I can get a little more downhill and cover even more ground. The cross step shuffle is good if you want to get downhill, but do it a little bit wider. You can notice that this is a more direct path. And if my defender's right here, a lot of times if I can get next to their hips, I can seal them out a lot better. And as a bonus addition for this move, a lot of times Kyrie will take one hard dribble and then get into a snatch back from there, pulling the ball back between the legs. And that can be used to create separation. And then from there you can, come into a hesi and drive this way. You can come from that hesi, cross over. You can come from that hesi, sell a fake and cross over. Or of course you can just get right into that shot. You could even get a couple extra steps in that step back. Just make sure the hand is above the ball and your steps don't count until the hand comes under or both hands are on the ball, and then you got your 2 steps to play with. Next move is the famous ankle breaker on Brandon Knight. Now he did this move on this side of the court, so let's bring it over here. He did a couple like between the legs, behind the backs and stuff to set it up, but the real move that got Brandon Knight was this. Is an inside out dribble, real tiny, kind of shifty one. Didn't really get a lot of footwork in the mix. It was just a little shoulder movement, maybe a little off foot movement with the opposite foot, but it was kind of just quick and tight like that, just to kind of stun him. From there, he got into a crossover, and this is where the magic happens. You want to float the ball on that crossover. So all this is nice, low and tight, crossover, float the ball, and as it's floating, take a cross body step hard this way like you're trying to get past the defender. So if the defender's here, you want to step here. So boom, boom, float that ball so your steps technically do not count. And this is on any league, NCAA, high school, college, NBA, FIBA. Floating the ball, so we're springing onto this foot, hop back out. And once my hand comes under the ball or both hands are on the ball, that's when steps count. And all you're gonna do is hop back and get right into that shot from there. One challenging but great thing to work on with this would be to really get some power into that crossover so you can really float it a little bit longer. And then what you can do from that is get into that float and then maybe get into another dribble again. You can keep it alive a little longer by having some more air time, and that way you can kind of delay that pickup and decide if you want to keep that dribble going and get into a counter move if the defense is closing out on this hop back, and that way you have a way to beat them no matter what they do. Okay, next move that was sick was the half hesi. So a lot of times we think about hesi as getting the feet squared, eyes to the rim, offhand by the basketball, but this one switches that up. Now I can't remember off the top of my head if he did it with the opposite foot of the hand dribbling forward or with the ball side foot forward, but really I don't think it matters. I think you should work on both so that way you have options. So that way no matter which step you're in the middle of, halfway into it, you can get into that half hesi and you'll always be able to get into it at the right opportunity. And all you're really gonna do is a little change on your typical hesi, which I just showed you there. So basically your hand is gonna be sort of behind the ball here. You wanna make sure it doesn't come under the basketball. You can be about here on up and it should be legal. You should never have an issue with getting called. And yes, that's even on the high school level. Bring that offhand close to the basketball like this. And you're gonna have that back foot kind of dragging here. And notice how I kind of have my toes on the ground. And when he did it, I noticed he kind of even had his pinky toe sort of on the ground. It wasn't that exaggerated, it's kind of like here though. And from there, you're just gonna boom, slow down a little bit and then go. It's that simple. But the biggest key to make this work is get some good momentum in downhill and then get back into that slow and go. Next move is the inside out between the legs, fake pass. So everything's gonna be the same as what I just did there, but I was looking right at you. In a game, you don't wanna look right at the defense as you're doing this. You wanna pick out a teammate, or if your defender's like real tight up on you here and they really can't see back here, then you can kind of pretend there's a teammate there as long as you got 1 or 2 people there. And a lot of times defenders will go for that fake, but you wanna look at maybe I'm passing over here and then come between the legs like that. Or you can pretend you're gonna pass to a trailing teammate like that. You can even look to a teammate over there like you're gonna pass between the legs like that. Besides that, as far as execution goes, whichever hand is dribbling, you're gonna lift that same side leg and just step right over the top of the basketball. So it really amounts to almost like a regular dribble like when you're running, but instead of pushing it out so far, you're gonna keep it a little tighter and a little less to your side and more in front of you. So that way it's just a nice tight dribble here. You step right over the top of it with that same side leg. Add the look and get downhill. Next move is the fake half spin shimmy. So for this one, whichever hand is dribbling, that same side foot's gonna come back. From there, you're gonna push the basketball down and kind of let it float on its own. As it's doing that, you wanna lean your shoulders back in the direction you just came from. So I was here and moved this way. I wanna shimmy back this way. So just like this, get your hand back on the basketball. You're gonna be switching hands though, so it's gonna go from right hand to left, and then the other foot comes forward. So right foot comes back, shimmy, left hand gets ball, left foot comes forward. So all together, it's gonna look like this.